All right, I am here live again. This is my second day in a row. Yesterday, had Hector Marquez come in from Prep Girls Hoops and Prep Hoops Utah, and that was fantastic. And I thought, why not make it a back-to-back? Because I'm out here working hard for you, for the people. I've got my friend Brad Greenland, who is the president of the Salt Lake, the Salt Lake Officials Chapter. President of the Salt Lake Officials Chapter. He's one of the many great officials that we have here for both men's and women's basketball, along with collegiately. He's an official, and he's going to do a quick introduction. We're going to actually go in, we're breaking down some film. We're going to be talking about some common myths. And then I'm trying to go live on Instagram. Sorry. And then hopefully we can also get to some questions. So if you ever had some questions for an official, now is your time. Here live on the Utah High School Hoops podcast. Let's go. This is the Utah High School Hoops podcast, your source for sometimes informative, but always entertaining coverage of the Utah High School Hoops scene with your host, Adam Peak. Hey, everybody. Welcome into the underground studio of the Utah High School Hoops podcast. I am so excited for this because if you've been following this page for a little bit, if you've been following me for a little bit, even when I was coaching, if I was able to coach you, I have a few rules, and one of them is just let the coaches talk to the officials. If you're a fan, you don't have to be yelling and screaming, and don't yell and scream at the other team. Don't yell and scream at the officials. These guys have a hard job, and Brad is willing to come into the underground studio and stand before the people and say, I'm ready to answer some questions and break down some film and all this stuff. But before we get into that, actually, I have to dual task this. So, hey, we got some people chiming in. What's going on, everyone, over on Instagram? I'll try to get over and see the comments. I have to kind of go back and forth between StreamYard and this. But if you're just joining, we got Brad Greenland here, president of the Salt Lake Officials Chapter. And so, Brad, why don't you do a little bit of introduction? How did you get into officiating? And what was it about your life that went wrong that was like, I better get into officiating? I'm just kidding.
Right.
I'm just kidding.
No, actually, I grew up here in Utah. Just played the game. I couldn't get enough of it. After high school, went straight to work and still wanted a ball. And
where'd you play at?
So I graduated from East High School.
Okay.
So I played at East. Coach Kerry Rupp, Skip Lowe, still the AD out there, was an assistant coach when I was there. So,
okay.
Kind of long story short, went to Sandy City Parks and Rec, doing some work out there, and then they talked me into officiating some junior jazz, and my initial reaction was no, thank you. But my good friend Emma Marr, shout out to her. She was the coordinator out there, and she talked me into it. So she kind of planted that seed, lit that spark, and just grew from there. And
this was when you were just out of high school, you started?
Yep.
Okay.
19 is when I started refereeing. So,
all right.
Then took it to the next level, and here I sit today as a NCAA Women's Division II official.
That's amazing. And I've seen you now at a couple of games. I think you had, it was the Highland Olympus game, I think. Did you have that one?
No, I had Highland Lehigh. So, and then I had at the Olympus tournament, it was Brighton. Oh man,
I know you probably officiate a lot of games.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I know, but I get to see you at a bunch of games, and I think it's important for people to realize that nobody expects perfection out of the players.
Right.
Nobody expects perfection out of the coaches. Nobody expects perfection out of anybody else except for you.
Except for
you have to be perfect. Yes. And there's no grace for you
for sure
at all. Do you find it then, being, kind of growing up now in this as an official, Do you find it's changed how you've watched the game from being a player now to being an official? Is it hard to watch
Yes.
games because you're just
Yes.
have this critical eye on it the whole time?
So when I watch basketball games, it is literally I'm watching the officials. Where are they standing? What's their positioning? What are they looking at? What plays are they calling? Like just being able to sit back and chill and watch a game of ball is a thing of the past.
Non-existent.
Non-existent. I'm because it's also like, watching them, it's like, oh man, I like what they did there. I'm gonna write that down and put that into my game to help
Mm.
me try to get that next step better. So
Do you study like this is a silly question, but I think it's kind of fun. Do you study like the style? Like, are there certain officials you're like, man, that guy or that girl, like, I really like how they make that charge call or how they go over to the table. Like, I've even noticed that certain officials have kind of their own way of calling things out. I'm sure
yeah.
that there's probably protocol and then there's like
Mhm.
some freedom to
Yeah.
put a little flair on it. You know
Yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
saying? Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, you gotta find a way within the guidelines of the officials manual to find that flair. Otherwise, you're gonna just stay where you're at.
Mm, got it.
So
Well, that makes sense.
yeah.
And so you've been going up now from junior jazz, and now you're at the Division II level for women. Is there and we're going to get into like how there's different manuals for the different
Mhm.
levels and all that, but is there kind of like a career arc and a trajectory for officials that a lot of people are on and trying to take that are, maybe there's an official here in Salt Lake who's mostly officiating, sophomore 2 and 3A games, but they really want to become a Division III college official. I mean, how does that
Right,
work? Is
right.
that
Basically, it's kind of like things in life with your job. You're gonna get back what you put into it. If you're not wanting to put in the time and the effort that it takes to get to that next level, one thing that I wish I had known earlier on in my career is how much networking was a part of this business.
mm,
Networking is key because if you don't have the right mentors, they're not going to get you to that next stage. So it's really the time you put into it, how much you're going to learn. Um, Currently I'm mentoring, a few officials. I say a few, but it's probably like a lot.
okay?
But and each one takes what I say in a different way, and you see the ones that use it and the ones that are kind of, well that's cool. Thanks, Brad. I'll try that.
Yeah.
So it's just what what you want to put into it: time, money, effort.
So it's kind of like playing. I
Mhm.
mean, there are probably players out there who are like, that's exactly what I go through, which is you're trying to get better, you're putting in the time, you're studying film. We're going to break down a little bit of film here. You have to be in physical shape to officiate.
Absolutely.
So I might even be like a point for any of the players who are listening or watching this, which is there can be a little bit of empathy knowing that every official is trying to get better than where they are, and they have to
Mhm.
work and they have to network with people, and they got to know the
Yeah.
right people, they got to have mentors, and they got to have coaches, and they got to have all that. I
Yep.
don't think I think probably there's a lot of players who think, well, Brad, you just roll in your car, you come on up, you collect your paycheck, and you go, I don't really care. And then hopefully I did a good job, and then you go home, right? But
Right.
that isn't. I got to sit on your training call. That is not what happens, everybody.
Right.
You
Right.
may think that's what happens. That is not what happens with these officials.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work. So, are you mostly then looking at not only your own film, but are you also breaking down maybe film? Like, do you go watch games that you have coming up to maybe take a look at, like, okay, how is this game officiated? What are some of the things that the players are doing?
Mhm.
So you kind of pre-watch film from the officials standpoint.
Yeah. So it kind of goes back to what you put into it, right? Is how your game's going to be. Just like as a player, we watched film, did the breakdown, the stat sheets, the matchups, right? It's the same thing on the official side with your officials that are going, that top level official. We're breaking down film. We're looking at, hey, what's the offense they're running?
Hmm.
Hey, they might have two bigs, but they like to shoot from the outside, so they're doing a high screen pick and pop, right? So things like that, coaches, reactions, how to talk to them, how not to talk to them. Because a lot of us that have been in this officiating career path for a while have seen the same coaches, especially in the high school scene, to where you have relationships to where you might have said, something to try to de-escalate the situation, but it actually escalated. It's like, oh, go back. And for me, I carry a notebook, and after each game, I write some high-level notes of, okay, hey, at 3:28 in the first quarter, hey, I tried to talk to Coach A, and this did not work.
Got it. Yeah, because that's a big part of it too, right? I mean, you're not just out there trying to run kids out of the game and like get coaches out of the game. Like, you're trying to be a part of the game. And I would imagine, I hope that the best games that I officiate, nobody knows I was there. That's kind of the goal, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's a big part of it, is knowing when to and how to talk with coaches and how to interact with players. That's big. So when you're preparing for like a big game, so I know during the call we were going through some film, and I can't remember if you were officiating it or not, but it was the American Fork Cypress playoff game. Yeah.
Yep.
And so before that game, so you're saying like you're preparing, you're watching film, you want to know the things they're doing, because you're like, the last thing I want is for people to be talking about me.
Yep. And you don't want to get surprised, right? So when you watch the film, obviously that game that, American Fork had two big post guys, right? So we knew that there was going to be a lot of post activity. So, in our pregame, that's the other thing, we're pre-gaming, before that 15 minutes we come out on the court, we're there an hour early and we're getting ready mentally, physically, all that fun stuff. So, but yeah, it starts early and to be successful.
That's cool. Well, here's what we're going to do, Brad. So I'll check over here. If you have any questions for Brad, if you're tapping in ever on Instagram, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can drop a question in here. And if you're just watching this on replay, that's totally fine, but you didn't get to ask a question. But if you have a question, just drop it in the comment. We're going to jump over here to a quick ad break for my favorite friends. I just got a 28 pack of Ruvi in, and I'm super excited about it. I'm still trying to stay in shape a little bit. Yeah. So hit up some Orange Theory this morning, got my Ruvi, got a little creatine, mixed it up. It was awesome. So everyone go check out Go Ruvi. And when we come back from this break, were we going to talk about misconceptions, or we were going to break down some film?
Yeah.
We're going to look at some film when we come back. This is the Utah High School Hoops podcast.
Hey, I just had to share this. My little guy's tearing into his new Ruvi box, and he goes straight for the sweet greens. I didn't see that coming. A quick mix, and the verdict? He loves it. Total mom win.
And you can also have a win by going to goruvi.com, GORUVI.com. Use code ADAM15 and you'll get 15% off your next order. That's goruvi, GORUVI.com, and use code ADAM15. And we're back. Does that kind of surprise you? Because you can't hear the music. It just happens.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like,
have you ever done a live podcast?
No.
In someo's basement?
No, sir.
It sort of feels like, I don't know how old you are, but this would help. It kind of feels a little bit like Wayne's World.
Oh, yeah.
A little bit like,
there you go.
Like we're,
those are the OG.
And then maybe one day I'll get Rob Lowe and we'll go big, and then I'll have to sure stick it to the man and go back underground. Yeah, it's probably going to happen. We're back here with Brad Greenland, president of the Salt Lake Officials Chapter. How many officials are in the Salt Lake Officials Chapter?
So just in the Salt Lake Chapter, we've got about 80. So it's made up, how it works is there's 4 chapters. We call it the quad board. You've got your Northern Utah officials, you've got the Salt Lake Chapter officials, and then there's another group here because it was just big enough to have 2, called the Wasatch Chapter, and then you've also got the Provo Chapter.
Okay.
So we all work together. Plus, you've got the Central Utah, Southern Utah, the Red Rocks, which is down St. George. So we cover the state, but so yeah, when we do the trainings and stuff like that, we're covering the state. But
does it get tough? I know I said we're gonna get to film, but I was thinking about this when I coached for Intermountain Christian School, we would play games, in Manila and Rich and Whitehorse and
Right.
is it something where you're really trying to get officials who are in that area? Like,
Right.
are there officials who live there usually in the town? Okay.
Usually are within plus or minus a 50-mile radius. I mean, it just depends. People's availability, how far they're able to travel, and if they're willing to do those games. So
got it. That makes sense. All right. Well, I don't see any questions because hey, here we go. He says this is Jordan, Gooch Ice on Instagram.
Okay.
Jordan plays up at Weber. He says, "Ref, what's your take on swiping with your offhand?"
Okay.
So I'm guessing he means, when you're going by someone and they reach in, you kind of.
Yeah. So
thanks, Jordan, for being the first question. My guy.
So I'm gonna have to go off of what we call as our ball handler dribbler fouls. You're allowed one hot stove, right? And when we see that swinging of the offhand, it's usually somebody who's a ball handler dribbler who's getting fed up with someone hand checking the whole time, right? Hey, he's got one hand and then he's got another hand and then he's got an arm bar, then he's got two hands. So usually we want to try to clean that stuff up early, but if I start seeing a hand swipe, I'm like, oh, I'm missing that first foul. I got to be better at seeing that first foul, the hand check, because that's why he's swiping his hand to try to get him off. Because he's also with that. Sorry, I'm going to go into like
let's go
weird lingo. Okay,
let's go ref nerdery.
All right,
with Brad Greenland.
Yeah. So when we see that, we're looking at is the effect on the RSBQ. And what that means is rhythm, speed, balance, and quickness.
Okay.
So if you as a ball handler are getting bumped off that path, or you're having to swipe that hand away because you're constantly been getting bumped off that path, that's when we need to start looking at those hand check fouls.
Got it. So when you start seeing it, and is this like you would, as El Presidente, this would be a training thing where you're telling officials, hey, when you see this, if a guy's going by and you start seeing him swipe, well, Jordan's left-handed, so we'll go with the right hand for you. But you start seeing that, it's like, oh man, what have I missed? Not immediately call the foul.
Right.
And maybe you do out of reaction, right? But it's like, okay, that's
because 8-9 times out of 10, there's going to be that contact first and then the swipe.
Yeah.
Right. So that we got to look at that first foul.
Got it. Jordan is actually jumping in here and asking a question about one of our common myths. So Jordan's on here. He's asking about the gather step or the zero step in high school. So we can jump into some of these things. And if you guys want to keep the questions coming, this is a time to have a civil conversation with a referee where you're not in the heat of the moment. So
for sure.
So let's talk a little bit about the gather step in high school. What's the official rule on that?
So it's funny because it's on our myths, right? That we were going to talk about.
Yeah.
The hard thing is everybody looks to the NBA. However, not everybody understands what the NBA rule book says on, the traveling violation. Going to the summer camps and things like that, I've been able to network and meet some of the NBA referees, and believe it or not, they actually have what they call as a zero step. So that's that gather step. However, in high school, we have a different rule book. You cannot have a gather step.
Okay.
So if you're comparing a gather step, zero step in the NBA to a high school game, by rule, it would be a travel.
Okay. So then do officials at the high school level, like everyone's influenced by something, right? So if an official sees, I don't know, Steph Curry doing it or Kyrie doing it or whatever, because they're just a fan of NBA basketball, is it easier to maybe miss those calls now in high school, whereas before it was like, okay, that's clearly travel. But now you have parents, you have coaches, there's trainers out there teaching it, and then kids are doing it in the game. And is that a call that's missed a lot? Like, do you find yourself
Yes.
coaching and training a lot with the refs on that?
Yeah, so I'll give you some statistic from the NC2A that we get newsletters and that as officials. We're about 50% roughly, and that's a guesstimate, right?
Sure.
It's not really, but yeah, it is getting harder with how it's being, tried to be manipulated, I guess you could say. With the travel though, the hardest one is going to be your spin move travels.
Mm-hmm.
That is going to be the hardest one that a lot of people are going to want, but sometimes they're ugly, sometimes they're not. But
okay.
And that's one of the other things too is I'll tell a coach, hey, just because it's ugly and it may look like a travel doesn't mean it was a travel.
Doesn't mean it's travel, right? Yeah. And does that go to also for the step? So that, let's see, we got to pick up your back foot on the step through. So I'm guessing, you'll see a guy like, stop, turn, pump fake, get the guy up, and then go 1-2 up into the shot. I'm not going to sit here and try to demonstrate that, Jordan. My 43-year-old man knees. I need some more Ruvi. Everyone go check out goruvi.com. Use code Adam15 so you don't have to have knees like me. But you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah. So it's tough because it's situational, right? If it's just a post move to where he turns, faces, does the pump fake, steps through, legal. But if it's a dribble and a jump stop, depending on where he picked that ball up in the moment, he or she, because you can land with 2 feet on the ground at a jump stop. But if it's a pitter patter, like that boom, boom, now you've got to travel.
Okay.
So yeah, it's pretty difficult, but it really depends on what the move is to whether it's going to be a travel or not.
And Jordan's asking all these questions because he uses every one of these moves. He's got an arsenal of moves. So Jordan, you can keep the questions coming. Why don't we jump into a little bit of film here? So I'll pull this up here onto is that fancy or what? Look at that. So what we're going to do is we've got a couple of clips, and I asked Brad to bring these because when I got to sit in on the officials training call, I thought it was really cool that they're pulling up clips just like you would as a player, and they're not just going through it from a perspective of, was this a foul? Was this not a foul? Was this the right call? Of course they're going through that, but it was also, hey, you need to move over here. And, we can go through one of these clips. Like, there was a lot of just coaching on positioning and line of sight. And I thought that was really great. And by the way, along with that, never once did I hear what you should have done is gone up into the stands, gone to the 16th row on the opposite side. And that was the best spot. That was never
right.
You were never told to go in the stands and watch the game from there.
No, but hey, sometimes that's the best view.
Sometimes, man, parents and coaches, y'all, we do have the best view, and it's usually when it's a foul that's called against our team or against our player. I don't ever really hear like the home team complaining about a bad foul against that benefited their team. You're never like, come on, that was a charge. It like benefited. It's really strange how
we tell the young officials, hey, get used to 50% of them not liking you and 50% of them loving you on every call.
Yeah. There's probably an occasional where it's just like, yeah, he got him. I mean, everyone knows. That was definitely a foul.
I know, but I don't want to admit it, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so let's go through this. I think I can kind of give you some control. So this is I can't tell who's playing in this one. The game's at Corner Canyon, but this was from, I think we got Alta against, I can't tell.
Not for sure. I want to, I think maybe Lone Peak. I'm not for sure. It was just one of the early season tournaments.
So I'll kind of play it and you can kind of talk us through why this would be on your training. Does that work?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yep.
Cool.
So before we start, we'll just kind of talk about positioning, right? So the official that's closest to our center court line where the ball handler matchup, that's our trail position. The one on the end line, that's our lead position. And then over there by the bench is our center position.
Okay.
So right now we just
Trail.
Yep, trail.
Trail is right here. I don't know if you can see my cursor. I think you can. That's our trail. This is our lead.
Yep.
And this is center.
Yep.
Nailed it.
And in the NBA, they'll call it a slot position.
Okay.
Just some different lingo.
I'm not worried about officiating or playing in the NBA.
Yeah, neither am I. So yeah, just kind of like because a lot of misconception is where are we actually looking, right? So right now, primary coverage area for our trail is ball handler, dribbler, that ball matchup there. Our center, he's looking at off ball, anything over there, cuts, holds, things like that. Lead's kind of looking
maybe
at
like
that
right here.
So that's going to be looking. Lead's going to be looking there
okay.
at that paint area.
And the lead is right now, right?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. So if you want to, I can hit play, but you can use the space bar in front of you to kind of stop it. So
okay, so now we've got a pass from 0 to, I'm not sure, but we got a pass to the wing, right?
Yep.
So now our areas of coverage change. So now the center position is going to have that ball matchup. And then our lead should be down about where that A is.
So the lead is currently off the screen and they should
Right.
be coming over here.
Yep. And we call that a position adjustment.
Okay.
Just to adjust down. So because now he's got to take that opposite block of him, that
Just
matchup
post
there.
up right here.
Yep.
Okay.
Trail, they don't have anything really competitively over there, so they can take a peek in as well. So we've got some contact here, and you see Black does a swim move, and they grab 24's left arm and pull him backwards to gain that front position. And then he kind of does a little throw of the head, and we kind of get fooled on this one. So this is why we had it in our training. We talked about getting that first foul. So this is where that one comes into play, is get the first foul on Black, and then we don't have to do that, because after, what you don't see is 24's like, I don't even know what I did.
Right. Yeah. And do you think that that's something where I'm going to pull up this other one here in a second. But is that a play where if the lead official had moved over, potentially, like you said, it's a 50% thing, but like potentially they see the contact, and that would be a moment of coaching for that official of, hey, had you kind of moved over, caught the line of sight, you would have seen this grab.
Right.
Okay.
Yep. We talked about showing engagement, because perception is everything, right? So where he was at before and calling that play clear across the paint doesn't look as good as if he was in our closed down position.
Got it. Okay. That's when someone's yelling out, you can't make that call from there.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the, let me see. I'm going to stop that, and we're going to go back to it here. Jordan asked a question about carries. He said, has there been an increase? One of the other things we're going to talk about is just like, what are some trends that we're seeing? Has there been a focus on carry calls?
Not necessarily. I haven't, in what I've seen, I haven't seen an uptick in those. The hard thing is kids or players in general. I'll just say that players in general are getting close to that, to where it's almost a carry, right? But their hand doesn't necessarily, what the rule book says is the ball comes to rest on the palm. So literally you've got to have that ball on your palm and then bring it back over before it's a carry. If I'm on the side, by rule, I'm still good. You're kind of doing that old Jordan fake the crossover and go back, right?
When he definitely just broke Byron Russell's ankles and didn't push. Jordan didn't push. I'm so sorry, Utah fans. I've watched Game 6 of the 98 NBA Finals a lot. Byron just got cooked. That's just all that happened. So anyways, and they were going to lose Game 7 anyway, so I don't know why you're complaining.
But yeah, so that's what I look for, because if you go by what the rule says, it's if the ball comes to rest on the palm of the hand.
Okay.
And
so if it's kind of, even if it's at like a little bit of an angle, but it's not all the way down, it's kind of like this, and then they're kind of driving it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it's to me, it's like, okay, did it come to a rest, or did it just, is that the move?
Yeah.
Right. Rather than, if it comes to rest, you're like, oh, wait a minute, the ball just like stopped. Okay, that's a carry.
Is it even a little bit situational where I'll hear people calling for a carry, for example, and the kid is they're just dribbling the ball up the court. And
Mhm.
I mean, maybe they're getting a little bit lazy, but I would say the same thing. Like the ball's not coming to a rest. They just have their hand
Right.
kind of like this.
Yep.
And is there kind of a situation where it's like the kid, he's dribbling the ball? Like there's nothing. This
Yeah.
isn't junior jazz, right? We're talking about.
Right.
Does that play into it, or is it kind of like, yeah, but if it does, then we got to at least teach him something.
I mean, that's where a lot of us. I mean, I'll speak for myself. I feel pretty blessed that when I step on the court, like when I'm inside the rectangle, I don't hear too much of the crowd. But now if a head coach comes over to me and says, "Hey, Brad, I think is he carrying the ball?" I'm going to ask that question. Okay, number one, what player? What's he doing wrong? I haven't seen it come to rest, but I'll keep an eye on it. I'll look for it, but I haven't seen it yet.
Got it.
Would be the conversation.
And that's part of the training around having the conversation with head coaches and that kind of stuff. All right, we got another question from Jordan. Jordan is winning the questions, everybody. He says, a part of your training to call fouls late, like on layups. Okay, so a kid goes up, maybe it's kind of it's like a 50-50 and misses a layup, and then Malachi from Weber comes in and grabs a rebound and he takes one dribble, and then the lead official calls a foul. Right. The perception is, I think, to parents and players is that was a late foul. They only called it because it was Jackson Johnson from Alta and he's a D1 player, and how could he miss? Like, of course, that's not all going through a ref's head, but I mean, that's the perception, is just like, he gets that call. He's getting, you know what I mean? So what's the late call? What is that? Just like, I'm processing information and I just process it late. Is that pretty much all that's happening?
So it's part of the processing, but we call it, we want to watch have information of the play from the start, develop, and finish. And even going into that, you can we break it down into like 5 frames of the play, right? At the beginning, as it's progressing, the layup goes up. Where's the contact at? Does it come in late? Because we would rather come in a little bit late and be right than come in quick with a foul and be wrong.
Right.
So if that makes sense, and that's probably why they're just kind of reprocessing it in the mind.
Yeah.
And sometimes, hey, I'll be honest, sometimes we miss stuff to where we're right on top of that play, and I might not see something, but the trail who's on the outside, he or she sees something. They come in with what we call as a secondary cadence whistle.
Okay.
And that's where it's like, okay, there's contact. That's the first foul. Then I'm waiting a half a beat. Okay, Brad doesn't have it. That's an obvious foul. Boom, I got to come in and get it.
Okay.
So,
and that secondary cadence whistle is you can't make that call. That's that guy's call. And I mean, that's what you hear people saying about it. And it's like, well, no, anybody, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but any official can make a call. It's everybody's game.
Yep. Obvious fouls can have anybody who can call it.
Yeah.
But yeah, you obviously want to have first opportunity to whoever's primary coverage area that is.
Right. So. Okay. And that's where the late call might come in, because they're waiting to see, like, okay, is he going to call it? No. All right, now I'm going to call it.
Yeah, because the other thing too that you can add another layer to it of is landing space. Right. If you're going up for a layup and it comes down and there's contact after that, and you just get taken out and you're going to the floor, and I've obviously got I need to have your safety in the game, right?
Right.
So that's where it could also come in late.
Okay, got it. Let's go here to our second clip. We only have 3 of these, by the way. So let's pop this one up, and I don't even remember what was happening here. So I'll hit play, and you can.
So this is going to be I mean, obviously you see we got bodies to the floor. I can't remember, but this is going to be a rebound foul right there on white.
Okay. So let's go back. Where are we going here? You can control it. You can control with the space bar. So
Okay, so right here as we have a shot right now, lead position. He's going to take his eyes to the paint, and he's going to watch that. And on the rebounds, we're looking for any like hooks, clamps, holds, pushes, displacement, anything like that. So right here, you see white wrapping up.
Right down there on the.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, and that's why we have a rebound foul on white.
Okay.
And that's where we talk about getting that first foul, right? Because if we don't call the first foul, then we're going to penalize the black team for the white team going to the floor with the second foul.
Got it. Okay. So this would be unlike the first example when you're doing your training and with the other officials, is the lead officials in the proper place. They get the
Correct.
first call. They don't get the action because I'm sure, the white players are going, no, but our guy fell to the ground. How did he foul? But it was really that first action when he came in, wrapped him up, started moving him off his place. Okay.
Right. Yep.
Got it. That's super helpful. Let's go to our third one. I'll click back over here. How about high-fiving on a jump shot? And we could go play some NBA Jam and go high five. Just, yeah. So a kid, pulls up, shoots it. You got your hand up here to contest. They follow through. What say you on that one?
To me, I've always gone with the hand and wrist as part of the ball. What I will say on that is there is a lot of, we're working on that training at our high school levels, as far as we talk about taking your shooter up and down, up, down, and then going to rebound. And what that means is basically on a jump shot. Actually, wonder if we have.
Hang on, I'll pull this one. Do you want to pull up this?
Yeah.
This is the post up though.
Can you go back to the other one? I could actually show that.
Yeah, hang on a second.
If not, it's fine. I can explain it.
Blessed are the flexible, for they shall not be broken. I believe is the phrase here.
But I'll kind of talk through it. One of the things that is taught at the higher levels is if it's ball, if I'm shooting and the defender hits the ball and then my arm or body or something like that, or that contact, more than likely you're not going to have a foul. But if it's coming in and he's getting arm, forearm, anything like that in that shooting motion, that's what body versus body ball, you're going to have a foul. Ball body, not necessarily a foul.
Okay.
But the high fiving,
we got this one pulled up again if you want to.
Oh, okay.
If you want to walk through this one again. Here, I'll hit play.
Yeah, so as he's right there, I mean, obviously we don't have somebody contestant, so we can't show it the greatest. But if that ball is away and we got a high five, me personally, I don't necessarily want to put that into my game, because now every time that happens, you're going to have to call a foul. Your partners are going to have to call the foul, and you're going to be sitting at the free throw line the whole game.
Right.
So if it's coming down, say forearm, then yeah, that's a foul you got to come in and get.
Yeah.
But if you're just high fiving, I don't.
Does it matter too if the defender, again, we talk about like verticality for the defender. If the defender is going straight up and then the offensive player is coming, following through and coming into their space, then
yeah, that
should be completely fine. I mean, okay.
Yep, as long as the player's vertical.
Got it. All right, we got one more here. Let me pull this one up. These are great. These are great questions. Sure, Brad, we can have you back on here again another time. I think it's this. Oh yeah, this is the post play.
Yeah.
On the defender. Let me get this pulled up, and then we will talk through what was going on this bad boy.
So this one we're talking about the post play, right? And because especially now that we're in region play, you're going to have a lot more physicality. The games mean a little bit more. You got your rivals, right? So you're fighting for position. So we brought this one up to talk about what's enough or what's too much. So if you could run it back, Adam,
Yeah.
to the very front. So we're good here. Our lead official, he's starting to come across. We got a skip pass. So obviously he's waiting for that ball to come to the opposite side, to black 22 before he actually initiates that rotation.
Okay.
So as it comes over,
He's moving.
he's coming over. And with this, center right here in front of us is.
Wait, is this you?
Yeah.
Are
So
you going to critique yourself?
I am.
Okay.
This is why I watch film. I watch film after every game. If I'm 2 steps higher, that free throw line extended, my home base, I'm going to be able to see that it's not necessarily a competitive matchup, and I can look into the post right there and see that, hey, we've got an illegal swim move, right? He's holding him, because that's our first foul right there. And our lead, he can't see that from where he's at. So absolutely, I'm going to critique myself, because now we've got black pushes off because he was getting held, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm still looking at the ball handler.
But the lead official is doing a good job of getting in position now, right?
Yeah. So he's getting over there. So now he's there. So now and what that does is that's called our rotation. So then now the center official, which is me, will move up to what is the trail position.
And then the lead.
The trail. Old trail.
Lead, that's okay. Now they become center.
Yep.
Okay. Look, we're learning things, everybody. We've got a really good question came in on YouTube, by the way, that we'll get to here in a second.
So with this matchup here, and I know it looks crazy, but this is how I break down film. It's play, pause, just so we see every aspect of it. Right now, white's displacing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we could say they're jockeying for position, but that's too much right there, because now the other thing too is you can say, oh, white 21's hooking him. No, white 21's hooking him because he's trying to maintain his balance.
Right.
Because he's getting pushed and kneed in the backside. So that's where our foul should have come in right there.
Okay. Got it. And that could have been, so you would have had the secondary cadence on that potentially, or either one of you.
Either one. Okay. With the action right there where you're ending up with the ball, I would stay there and then trust my lead to have that.
Okay. So. Awesome. Got a question here from YouTube. Look, I can pull this one up on the screen. Sorry, Instagram. How do you train refs to keep their egos in check and just call a fair game for both sides? Some refs have huge egos and you can see them react to the crowd with their calls. So the emotional part, how is that? It's a part of it because we're all humans.
Absolutely.
So how does that get worked through and trained? And is it something that you guys talk about a lot? I don't know.
It is something that we talk about. We're getting better at it because it's something that has been noticed, right? So the last 2 years, we have had a mental toughness coach.
Okay.
Actually, preseason come in and do a couple trainings for us to basically get our mind right when those scenarios come into play. As far as egos, to each their own. I don't know how you train that out of it. It's tough because you do see it, and it does affect other officials, right? Well, not other officials, I guess the officiating community, right? But we're trying to make ways to where we keep it down and just try to get the mental aspect of it now, because we teach and train on film and positioning and rules and all this stuff, and now we're just barely dipping into the mental toughness side of it.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there are things that we all, I think, intrinsically have just as human beings, and officials are human beings, and so the idea that you're going to get caught up in the emotion, as much as you want to say no, it's going to happen.
Yep.
I mean, I think humans have implicit biases towards different people, and that's a thing that every human being, not just every single human being, has to work through that, and it's
Right.
cool to hear that that's part of the training now,
Yep.
which is that's great.
Yep.
And I think Jordan had our list of common myths, because he said, what about over the back? And this, I'm not a rules expert
Okay.
not like you, not by any stretch of the imagination. But I've watched and coached and played, and I did officiate intramurals at CSU, which was a lot of fun. And one of the first things I learned was there's no such thing as over the back.
Correct.
But there are still people who are constantly calling out, that's over the back.
Right.
So what exactly is it? When is it a foul? When is it not a foul? When you're going up for a rebound?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think it's just one of those things that we heard back in the day with the old school refs, and the NBA over the back, right? I mean, they even had a weird signal that over the back.
Like this?
Yeah. But we've gone away.
My favorite one was this, by the way. Sorry.
Yeah.
There's an NBA official who, you see these videos, and he was like, fouls on whatever. He was giving him the business. I think it was an NFL ref, but
yeah.
Giving him the business. Yeah. Yeah. Over the back.
Yeah. So that's pretty much long and gone, but for whatever the verbiage from the fans and all that is still there. So what we call it is verticality. So each player has their own space, right, from the floor to the ceiling in their cylinder, so to speak, right? As long as they're going up and coming down. And yeah, I mean, when we talk about verticality, somebody is not going to have their arms straight up, right? They're going to have a little bit, 10% bend in them and a little bit forward, right? But as long as they're not pushing or displacing is the key word, displacement of the individual who's boxing out or contesting a shot, right? But going back to the over the back, as long as you're up vertical and some guys are going to out jump other guys, and then all of a sudden it's an over the back. Well, no. Coach, he's in his vertical plane going up. He just out jumped your kid. I'm not going to say that to the coach in the game, right? I'm like, dang, that guy's got hops,
right?
But and that's what it is. It's
or that guy does not have hops.
Yeah. But then when it kind of gets into that, so to speak, over the back is when they break that vertical plane.
Okay.
Right. When you are now reaching over the defender and causing contact in his vertical plane, that's when
but going up, if the ball is here and you give your too little sign because the guy can't get off the ground very high, and you jump up and you grab the ball before his fingers are going to grab it, and you pull it back and you never touch him, and then you go up for a shot, that is not a foul. That is a clean play, because you've made no contact, you have not interrupted,
no illegal contact.
The last one that I have, and if anyone else has any other questions, please you can drop them here in Instagram. Hey, thanks, Jordan, appreciate it. If you got any other questions, please let me know. We'll try to have yourself back or someone else from the community, because I think this is really good and helpful for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
But along with that verticality, we were talking before the interview, I see players, like you said, they don't always jump straight up in the air. I mean, in terms of like their hands are perfectly above their shoulders, like they're some synchronized diver or something like that.
No way.
But they're kind of up like this, right? And then a guy's driving and they jump and they create the contact.
Correct.
Which to the point on when the kid in the video that we watched, when it's like, oh, he's hooking, it's like, no, he's getting pushed. So it causes them, they take the shot in the chest,
right, and
it causes them to collapse onto the player, and then they miss a shot, and then they get a foul, right? I think that's a really hard one to officiate, but
it is
by the rule book. That's
by rule, that'd be an offensive foul, because the offense initiated the contact into the chest of a vertical defender.
Yeah.
And that's why we talk so much on, as officials, we're watching the defenders while everybody else is watching the offense. We're watching the defense, because we need to understand, okay, did they create and maintain legal guarding position, right? 2 feet on the floor, facing the defender or facing the opponent. Because if you don't have that initial knowledge, you're going to get duped into calling that.
Right.
Because you're like, it's going to catch you by surprise. I'm watching the ball. Offense. Oh, contact. Oh, you got him on the arm.
You probably did.
Hey, he put his shoulder into my chest, and that made me come down. Right. So that's another one that we've been training on heavy, because who creates the initial contact of displacement.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Got another question here. So we got, by the way, if you join this on YouTube, you can get your questions pulled up on the screen. Not that that really matters. Are refs allowed to instruct players on the floor while calling the game? An example, giving warnings before making a call. I love refs who would give warnings like get out of the key or hands off. So is that coached? Is that trained? Or is that just a style that some people do it, some people don't?
More than not, we do it.
Okay.
Right. Because we want to establish a flow in the game. Excuse me. But we also know that we've got to call. We're there for a job. Right. So usually in my pregame, it's, hey, the first 3 minutes, let's see what they're going to do. If they're getting handsy, tell them hands off. Right. Because 9 times out of 10, the player's going to listen. Guess what? Hands off. Okay. Foul. Same with the 3 seconds in the key. When I'm doing my, and the other thing is that's not a visible count. So it's like,
yeah,
how long are they in there? Usually when I'm at 2, I'm like, clear the key, right? 2.5, get out. 3. Okay. 3 seconds.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. And that would be another one to parents. I feel like this is a therapy session for me, because as a parent, I do sit like, you can't talk to every single parent, especially for the opposing team, but 3 seconds is not 1, 2, 3, 3 seconds.
Right.
Like that's not how there's there's a cadence to the 3 seconds. It's probably,
Correct.
Don't pull out your Apple Watch and time the kid.
And everybody counts different because we don't have an Apple Watch in the game.
Yeah, it's so true. Wouldn't it be kind of cool though if there was like a kind of like in baseball where they have like the balls and strikes thing, where it's like somebody goes in and then it just starts like counting because it knows it's the person, and then it just goes beep. It's like 3 seconds, almost like when you're bowling and you go over the line and it beeps at you.
And the hard thing too with that is you get too pure with things, and then it takes that flow of the game out.
Yeah. And I really, we can probably start wrapping this up here. Appreciate everybody for jumping in and asking some questions. We actually ended up getting through everything, just not in the segment section.
Yeah.
It just got it all done. But I think that as a fan and as a dad and as someone who's coached, I know that I've really appreciated what you've talked about, which is, how do I make sure that the game flows? Because the game of basketball can be so beautiful. I mean, it's a really beautiful game. And, when people say like, I wish we could go back to the 80s when, it was like this rough and tumble, like basically a wrestling match. It's like,
right.
Yeah, but the games were like 72 to 65.
Yeah, for sure.
There was a lot of like, you could hand check and you could grab and you could do all sorts of stuff. And maybe that's what you want, but count me as somebody who just loves good, basketball where the ball is moving and,
sure.
there's, it's such a beautiful sport to watch. And so that does my heart well to hear that you're, you and as El Presidente of the chapter are someone who's concerned about that. So if you guys see Brad or you see anybody else in an official's jersey, please remember, have some empathy. Remember some of the things we talked about. If you see him before the game, he's in his zone. If you see him after the game, he's heading to the locker room. Right. But maybe if you catch him, a little bit before during the JV game or whatever, give him a dap and say, hey, thanks for the help. But Brad, I appreciate you coming on. Thanks to everybody for joining in on Instagram and on YouTube. And I don't know if anyone's on Twitter. I didn't have that pulled up, but if you did, that's super rad as well. Thanks for coming to the Underground.
Yeah, man, this is awesome. Thank you.
Live and direct. Appreciate it. And everyone, please like and share and subscribe to the podcast. It would mean a whole lot. Appreciate it. Thanks.